In the darkness, Lin Dong's expression shifted between anger and confusion. How could this happen? The devouring power was unique to the ancestral talisman of devouring, and right now, that very talisman was quietly resting within his body. So, what was the meaning of this sudden surge of devouring power? Moreover, he could sense that this power wasn't lifeless. It was filled with a certain vitality, implying that someone was controlling it. Right now, there are only the three of us here, and there's no disturbance at Jiu Feng's location. This devouring power doesn't belong to him. Lin Dong's eyes flickered anxiously. After a moment, his gaze slowly turned toward another direction in the darkness, where Kun Ling was. Since the devouring power didn't belong to Jiu Feng, there was only one possible answer left. The devouring power was coming from Kun Ling. Lin Dong's mind raced, and after some time, he managed to suppress his shock. Now wasn't the time for such thoughts. The energy here was limited, and if he wanted to preserve his own strength, he would have to seize this energy quickly. With that in mind, Lin Dong hurriedly calmed his mind. The devouring power surged from within him, and his body seemed to transform into a black hole. The overwhelming force spread out as it arrogantly drew the surrounding elemental energy towards him. As Lin Dong forcefully absorbed the energy, a faint, startled cry suddenly echoed from the nearby darkness. The voice, filled with shock, clearly indicated that Kun Ling had also detected the devouring power that was competing for the energy. After the startled cry, there was a long silence. It wasn't clear what Kun Ling was thinking, but soon enough, she too intensified her devouring power, refusing to yield as she fiercely competed with Lin Dong for the surrounding energy. Tisage, noticing her actions, Lin Dong smirked. Though the two of them had briefly cooperated earlier, they were now once again competitors. In this unique environment, Jiu Feng, who had once been the most dangerous, had become irrelevant. Now, the real rivalry was between the two of them. Although I don't know how you obtained devouring power, you still dare to compete with me, the true holder of the ancestral talisman of devouring? Lin Dong thought to himself, and with a movement of his mind, a ring of black holes suddenly appeared behind him. As the black hole spun, the surrounding elemental energy rushed in, the devouring force so powerful that even Kun Ling couldn't resist it. Buzz. The elemental energy quickly surged in and was absorbed into Lin Dong's body. With the operation of his devouring power, the energy transformed into primordial energy and flowed within him. Creak. In the darkness, Kun Ling struggled to activate her devouring power, trying to block Lin Dong's forceful plundering. Though her efforts had some effect, the majority of the energy was still being drawn towards Lin Dong. This made her clench her silver teeth in frustration. The darkness was silent, yet the two were locked in fierce competition, desperately scrambling for the energy. It was almost laughable. Under normal circumstances, this energy wouldn't have been worth fighting over, but now, it was as precious as water in the desert. Neither of them could afford to lose it. Thus, they fought over this small amount of energy, their faces flushed with intensity. The energy in this dark space was limited, and as they fought, it quickly began to deplete. The majority of it was absorbed by Lin Dong, replenishing the energy he had lost. As the energy continued to dwindle, a pair of bright, crystal-clear phoenix eyes suddenly opened in the darkness. Kun Ling stared toward Lin Dong's direction with a mix of anger and resentment. With a flick of her mind, silver spiritual energy gathered into countless silver petals, shooting towards Lin Dong like a storm. Clearly, she was furious. Unable to defeat Lin Dong, her frustration had turned into anger. Lin Dong's eyes flickered as he watched this. Without making any obvious movements, a curtain of thunderous spiritual energy appeared before him, and as the silver petals collided, they were instantly annihilated. All this mindless attacking of yours might just drain the energy we've worked so hard to collect. Lin Dong chuckled and spoke aloud. How can you? Kun Ling's voice faltered as she stared at Lin Dong's direction, but she quickly bit her lip. She seemed to realize that mentioning certain things in front of Jiu Feng might reveal her secrets. The energy's almost gone. From here on, it's just a matter of who can last longer. Lin Dong smiled, remarking casually. Kun Ling snorted. Is it really all gone? Lin Dong was stunned. Just as he was about to speak, he felt a force of devouring energy roar out, sweeping directly toward Jiu Feng not far away. Kun Ling had actually set her sights on Jiu Feng. Heh, clever girl, Lin Dong chuckled inwardly. Kun Ling was quick-witted. Since the energy of heaven and earth had been drained, she decided to seize the energy inside Jiu Feng instead. At this point, Jiu Feng, having no devouring power of his own, was unable to activate his internal strength. In fact, he had become easy prey, like a fish at the mercy of others. Kun Ling's devouring power quickly wrapped around Jiu Feng, and Jiu Feng's expression changed drastically, clearly sensing the rapid loss of energy within his body. Such bad luck, old dog, Lin Dong grinned and said, in that case, I'll join in too. As the words left his mouth, Lin Dong waved his hand, and a surge of devouring power exploded out, forming a black hole directly above Jiu Feng's head. As the black hole spun, massive primordial energy was visibly flowing out from Jiu Feng's body, eventually being swallowed by the black hole. Naturally, Kun Ling also noticed this scene. A strange gleam flashed in her phoenix eyes as she realized that when her devouring power met Lin Dong's, it felt almost as if her power wanted to merge with his. You two brats, seeking death. Jiu Feng bellowed furiously, his face dark with anger. With his status, even the likes of Kun Yuan and Elder Zhu Li would show respect, but now these two juniors dared to attack him directly, in such a humiliating way, forcibly stripping away his internal energy. Humph! Kun Ling snorted lightly, completely unafraid of Jiu Feng. Lin Dong let out a strange laugh. His actions showed no mercy, and the speed of the devouring power only grew faster. Jiu Feng roared with rage, but in this bizarre environment, he found himself powerless to resist. He could only watch helplessly as the energy within his body rapidly drained away, his face growing pale. I won't let you get away with this. Helpless, Jiu Feng could only roar in anger. His voice echoed in the darkness, only to fade away. Lin Dong and Kun Ling ignored him, their eyes half closed as they focused all their energy on devouring Jiu Feng's primordial power to replenish their own rapidly depleting strength. In the darkness, only Jiu Feng's enraged roars could be heard. But as time passed, these roars grew weaker, until finally, they completely disappeared. As the roars of Jiu Feng faded, Lin Dong slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Jiu Feng, who now appeared much thinner, his face ashen and his breath faint. It seemed that Jiu Feng had truly suffered under their hands. The devouring energy surrounding Jiu Feng's body quietly dissipated. Lin Dong felt the power still surging within him, and he smiled in satisfaction. Slowly, he stood up and walked toward Jiu Feng with a sinister look on his face. Kid, what do you think you're doing? Jiu Feng yelled as he saw Lin Dong approach. What do you think? Lin Dong grinned. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Jiu Feng was clearly no ordinary character. Treating him this way today would certainly make him a mortal enemy. If Lin Dong didn't solve this trouble now, once Jiu Feng regained his strength in the reincarnation stage, it would become a huge problem. And Lin Dong was never one to leave potential threats alive. Hearing this, Jiu Feng clenched his fists tightly, his cold eyes locked on Lin Dong, who was steadily advancing. Lin Dong raised an eyebrow at the sight. He tightened his grip on the Thunder Emperor's scepter, preparing to make his move, but at that moment, a slender figure appeared in front of him. What are you doing? Lin Dong frowned, looking at the silver-haired beauty with an elegant figure blocking his way. Are you really that stupid? Or just pretending to be? Kun Ling glanced at Lin Dong with her phoenix eyes, her tone calm. Do you really think a strong reincarnation stage cultivator can be easily dealt with? Then what? Lin Dong raised an eyebrow. Wasn't it the right time to strike? Well, if you want to try, go ahead. But if he fights back with his life on the line, let's see if you can walk away from it, Kun Ling said, turning away. Her silver hair brushed past Lin Dong's face, and a faint fragrance lingered in the air. Lin Dong frowned. He loosened his grip on the scepter, his hand tightening and then relaxing again. In front of him, Jiu Feng had closed his eyes. His pale face had a visible vein pulsing under the skin. That girl is right. A reincarnation stage cultivator isn't that easy to kill. If you push him too far, he may end up fighting back desperately. Even you might not escape unharmed. The voice of Yin echoed, slowly resounding. Hearing Yin Yan's words, Lin Dong could only sigh, a hint of irritation flashing in his eyes. He turned toward the depths of the darkness ahead. The strength of the Jiu Feng had been completely drained. They no longer had the power to compete with him for the Devouring Lord's legacy. Quickening his pace, Lin Dong hadn't gone far when he collided with a soft figure, causing him to stop in surprise. Before he could speak, the body against his pulled away quickly. "What are you doing?" Kun Ling's embarrassed voice cut through the darkness. Lin Dong rubbed his nose awkwardly, thinking, "It's pitch dark here. How could I avoid you if I can't see anything?" Seeing Lin Dong stay silent, Kun Ling managed to suppress her embarrassment, hesitating for a moment before asking, "Can I ask you something?" Lin Dong shrugged, his gaze growing sharp as he stared into the darkness ahead. His voice echoed softly. "You're wondering why I possess the devouring power, aren't you?" "Coincidentally, I've been meaning to ask you the same thing." Lin Dong's voice carried through the darkness, and though he couldn't see clearly, he could feel the figure in front of him tremble slightly. "Can you tell me why the devouring power exists within you?" he asked with a slight smile toward the darkness. Kun Ling remained silent, clearly reluctant to answer. "Even though you possess devouring power, it doesn't seem as pure or genuine as mine," Lin Dong murmured to himself. During his earlier contact with Kun Ling's devouring power, he'd noticed that while her ability had the essence of devouring, it lacked the same purity. "Nonsense!" Kun Ling's cold voice rang out in the darkness, laced with indignation. "Heh, if you say so." Lin Dong chuckled, not interested in arguing further. Since she wasn't willing to discuss the source of her power, he let it be and continued deeper into the darkness. Behind him, he heard her soft footsteps pause, and after a brief hesitation, Kun Ling bit her lip and quickly followed. The darkness seemed endless, and as Lin Dong moved forward, he could feel his strength gradually fading. Although he could still use the Ancestral Devouring Talisman to counteract the draining force, his resistance weakened as he ventured further. After what felt like an eternity, he heard a faint, hurried breath behind him. It was Kun Ling. Her strength, too, was slowly being drained, yet she stubbornly gritted her teeth, following him step by step. Then came a dull thud, signaling her collapse. Lin Dong paused, glancing briefly back into the shadows. There, something glistened faintly, as though tears were falling. Lin Dong stood still, sensing that Kun Ling was struggling to rise, yet unable to do so, making her look unexpectedly vulnerable and helpless in the darkness. The faint shimmer of tears in the shadows began to fall more rapidly. With a resigned sigh, Lin Dong turned back. He wasn't sure why he did it. Being soft-hearted wasn't in his nature, but somehow, he couldn't bring himself to leave her behind. As he approached, he heard a quiet, stubborn sob. The darkness seemed to have stripped away Kun Ling's usual cold exterior, leaving her more fragile. "If you can't handle it, don't force yourself to go any further," Lin Dong said, standing before her in the dark. "Go your way, and I'll go mine," she replied defiantly, though her voice still held a faint tremble. "Give me your hand," Lin Dong said. A slight hesitation froze the figure in the shadows before her stubborn voice sounded again. "I can walk on my own. Hurry up." His voice was low, firm, and in the darkness, Kun Ling's figure trembled slightly. For reasons unknown, she found herself unable to resist him, feeling as though this person before her commanded her entirely. The thought alone startled Kun Ling. She quickly realized something. Is this because of the devouring power? Startled, Kun Ling had unconsciously stretched out her slender jade hand, gently resting it in Lin Dong's palm. The warmth transmitted from his large hand made her tremble slightly, and the devouring force that surged within her like an enraged python gradually began to calm down. A feeling of attachment surged from the devouring force. That sensation seeped deep into Kun Ling's heart, causing a seductive flush to rise on her delicate face in the darkness. Lin Dong, unaware of the turmoil in Kun Ling's heart, held her soft, jade-like hand, bent slightly, and then, with a low gasp, swept her delicate form up, holding her at the waist. He then turned and began to walk slowly into the deeper darkness. Before the devouring deity temple, many powerful beings floated in midair, eagerly staring at the black palace. However, the stone door, tightly shut, remained completely still. Before the door, the devouring heavenly corpse, holding a black long knife, stood motionless. Knowing how ruthless this being could be, no one dared to recklessly charge in. This wait lasted for half a day, until someone finally grew impatient. Several of the strong exchanged whispers and then turned to leave, likely planning to search elsewhere for other treasures. But just as they had turned to fly away for less than 1,000 yards, an evil black light suddenly swept out from the void. As soon as the black light touched their figures, they let out horrific screams, and in just a few breaths, their bodies were reduced to dust. What happened? The sudden screams shattered the peace of the land, and the many powerful beings before the devouring deity temple quickly turned around. To their horror, they saw evil black energy rolling in from the edge of the sky. The space around them instantly darkened, and cold, violent winds howled. What's going on? The crowd looked on in shock as the strange phenomenon unfolded. This fluctuation. Grand Elder Jiu Li suddenly stood up, his face full of shock as he gazed at the black energy rolling in. His palms clenched tightly, and he spoke in a low voice. It's the alien demons. What? At the mention of this, the eyes of those around them, Lu Qing, Little Mink, and others, narrowed. The evil demonic energy spread from all directions in the sky, and soon, it enveloped the entire space, leaving only a peaceful radius around the devouring deity temple. The demonic energy surged, and within the clouds, a ghostly black figure slowly appeared. He looked at the many top-tier powerhouses in front of the devouring deity temple and couldn't help but smile. So you all are here. This saves me quite a bit of trouble. So it's you filthy, evil beings, hiding like rats in the darkness, and now you dare to show yourselves? The Grand Elder of Kun Yuan's face darkened instantly upon seeing the scene. He spoke sharply. Haha, my alien demons have been lurking for a grand purpose. How could you ignorant beings understand? If it weren't for the Ancestral Talisman Master, your realm would have already fallen into the hands of my alien demon clan. The black figure laughed arrogantly. Do not waste words with him. Everyone, strike together and kill this demon. Grand Elder Jiu Li spoke in a deep voice. The powerful beings present, all with formidable strength and experience, had heard of the alien demons. They were the common enemies of all living beings in this realm. Kill me? I'm afraid you won't be able to do that today. The black figure smiled faintly, and with a wave of his sleeve, the black clouds rolled, and 4 figures slowly walked out. With their appearance, for overwhelming auras swept through the space. Alien demon kings? Grand Elder Jiu Li and the others turned pale as they looked at the 4 figures. These 4 were alien demon kings, meaning they were peak-level reincarnation stage powerhouses. Coupled with the still-hidden strength of the black figure, this lineup was enough to make them feel terrified. So, this is where the Devouring Lord passed away? What a pity. My old rival has fallen to this state. Your legacy in this world will likely be cut off. The black figure, high above the black clouds, looked coldly at the devouring deity temple on the lonely peak, a cruel glint flashing in his eyes. The muffled sound of footsteps echoed in the darkness. Lin Dong couldn't help but tug at the corners of his mouth. He had no idea how long he had been walking in the darkness. All he could feel was that his energy seemed to have completely dissipated. Now, his steps were as heavy as stone. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and his breath had become increasingly ragged. The soft figure in his arms seemed to stir slightly. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Lin Dong furrowed his brow. Kun Ling was angered. She held a high position within the Kunpeng clan and was also very beautiful. Normally, no one would dare speak to her like this. But at this moment, she couldn't summon much anger. This made her heart ache. She had truly been ruined by this inexplicable devouring power. Lin Dong held her and walked a bit further. Eventually, The energy in his body completely dissipated, and his body went limp, crashing heavily to the ground. However, just before he hit the ground, he twisted his body, and his back slammed onto the earth, the dull thud making him frown tightly. Kun Ling felt her body shudder, but there was no pain from hitting the ground. She paused, then realized what had happened. Quickly, she tugged at Lin Dong's clothes and whispered, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, not dead yet." Lin Dong panted a few times, then helplessly lay on the ground, saying, "Now there's no way out. It seems we can't escape." The Devouring Lord made this test so bizarre. It's really hard to make sense of it. If the Devouring Lord's inheritance were so easy to obtain, you'd be too naive to think that way, Kun Ling replied. "Yeah, if I'd known, I should have just left you there and walked away." Lin Dong scoffed. Kun Ling gave a soft hum and said no more. Lin Dong, helpless, was too tired to care about her. Just as he was about to close his eyes to rest, a faint laugh suddenly echoed through the darkness. "If you had left her there, I'm afraid you'd never get this inheritance." The sudden voice startled Lin Dong. He quickly looked up, and in the deepest part of the dark space, he saw a light appearing. There, a figure was sitting cross-legged, bathed in light. But if you looked closely, you'd notice that within a few inches of this figure, there was no light at all. From a distance, he resembled the most mysterious black hole in the starry sky, devouring everything. That was the Devouring Lord. The sudden light spread through the darkness, slowly driving it away. In the center of the light, a slender figure sat quietly like an ancient rock, unwavering through the ages. Lin Dong stared in shock at the figure emerging from the darkness, his face filled with astonishment. Kun Ling beside him also gazed ahead, her eyes full of surprise. "Devouring Lord?" Lin Dong swallowed hard, mumbling in disbelief. As if hearing his voice, the figure in the light slowly raised its head. Under the radiance, a handsome face came into view. His face was smooth like jade, with an enigmatic smile, and a pair of pitch-black eyes that were deep and profound. With slightly raised, sword-like brows, he had a domineering air that seemed to look down on the heavens. He was a man of great charm, the new master of the devouring ancestral talisman. "After all these years, you finally arrived." He looked at Lin Dong with indifferent eyes, then smiled. "Devouring ancestral talisman?" Kun Ling, shocked, turned her head and looked at Lin Dong in surprise. So, this guy possessed the devouring ancestral talisman. No wonder. Since we've met an elder, I suppose we've passed the trial? Lin Dong's shock began to fade. He smiled at the Devouring Lord and said. The Devouring Lord looked at Lin Dong with a smile in his eyes. Then, his brows lifted slightly, and he said, "I sense many familiar auras from you. Let me see. Flame Lord, Lord of the primordial wilderness, Dark Lord, and?" The Devouring Lord's gaze on Lin Dong suddenly sharpened. His usual calm expression showed the faintest ripple. Then, with a light sigh, it was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from him. "Ice Lord, has she succeeded as well?" She did not disappoint her teacher's desperate protection. Alas, she still surpasses her in the end. Lin Dong clenched his palms slightly. The Devouring Lord's strength was truly immense. Even though he wasn't in his true form at the moment, he could still easily recognize the powerful auras Lin Dong had encountered. You must have interacted with these 4 people directly or indirectly. That kind of aura, I can recognize it with a glance. The Devouring Lord smiled and then casually said, "Yin, it's been millennia. Don't you want to meet an old friend?" As his voice fell, a warm light shot out from Lin Dong's body and transformed into a shadow. Yin looked at the man before him, his expression complex. "I didn't expect the once proud son of heaven to end up like this. At that time, did I have any other choice?" Yin remained silent. At that time, the 8 lords were all severely injured. His master, using the last of his strength, protected the Ice Lord into reincarnation. The other 7 lords were powerless. If the Devouring Lord had not held back, half of the 7 might have been lost. "He is the new ancestor talisman wielder," Yin said, his gaze turning to Lin Dong. Master? The Devouring Lord's eyes flickered, and his voice carried a hint of amusement. Lin Dong said nothing. Back when he was in the demon suppression prison, the Dark Lord had reacted similarly to the title of Ancestor Talisman Wielder, so Lin Dong knew what that title implied. This young one is interesting, the Devouring Lord mused. But whether he can truly bear the title of Ancestor Talisman Wielder remains to be seen. He not only possesses the Devouring Ancestor Talisman, but also the Thunder Ancestor Talisman, Yin added. I sensed it. The Devouring Lord nodded. Then he fixed his gaze on Yin, slowly speaking, but that is still not enough. Yin fell silent for a moment, then said, You should know. The war from back then is far from over. Now, the alien demons are hiding, and no one knows how much power they still have. But what you don't know is, when the Master was burning through reincarnation, he entrusted me with something, Yin continued. Oh. The Devouring Lord raised his head slightly, his gaze fixed on Yin. My master told me that if possible, I should find another Ancestor Talisman Wielder. Isn't that your junior sister? Though I don't want to admit it, she is indeed stronger than I am. If anyone has the chance to reach our master's level, it's definitely her, the Devouring Lord said indifferently. Indeed, the Ice Lord is the best candidate, and even my master believes so. But it's always good to have more options, isn't it? Yin nodded. Heh, I am already a fallen person. What you say to me has little effect. You should tell those 7 fellows. But from what I know of them, getting them to believe in your junior sister and not him is impossible, the Devouring Lord laughed. Yin smiled bitterly. That was indeed highly unlikely. How is your junior sister? Is she all right? The Devouring Lord suddenly turned his gaze to Lin Dong. From Lin Dong, he sensed the Ice Lord's aura. The two must have had long interactions. Lin Dong paused for a moment before sighing, I only know Ing Huan Huan, not the Ice Lord. At this point, a flash of a beautiful figure from his near-death experience crossed his mind. The image of her ice-blue hair, causing a slight pain in his heart. Yin smiled. He knows the Ice Lord after reincarnation. The Devouring Lord was momentarily stunned. He looked at Yin and Lin Dong's expressions and seemed to understand something. He stroked his chin thoughtfully and said seriously, Your junior sister is indeed a difficult one to handle. Back in the day, I was all-powerful, but she wouldn't even spare me a glance. Lin Dong, I have faith in you. Do your best to win over that millennia-old iceberg. Lin Dong silently stared at the Devouring Lord, who seemed to have completely changed. He couldn't help but chuckle and shake his head. Beside them, Kun Ling shot Lin Dong a glance, noticing his somewhat downcast mood. She parted her red lips slightly but didn't say anything. She simply turned her face away. Little girl. The Devouring Lord's gaze suddenly shifted to Kun Ling. He smiled gently, and his gaze softened. You're from the Kunpeng clan, right? Kun Ling of the Kunpeng clan pays her respects to the senior, Kun Ling said respectfully. Kun Chinger, how is she related to you? The Devouring Lord asked. When mentioning her name, his handsome face softened. She is my ancestor, Kun Ling replied. The Devouring Lord nodded slightly, then sighed. Then you must know who I am. You're the husband of my ancestor. Kun Ling blushed slightly and responded respectfully. Lin Dong was astonished. So, Kun Ling had this kind of relationship with the Devouring Lord. No wonder he had said that if Lin Dong abandoned Kun Ling, the inheritance would be lost. But, since the Devouring Lord was married to Kun Chinger and had a complicated relationship with the bewitching nine-tailed spirit fox, it seemed this guy had quite a few romantic entanglements. This girl must be the Devouring Lord's direct descendant, otherwise, she wouldn't possess devouring power. Yin spoke quietly from the side. His descendants can also receive this blessing? Lin Dong was surprised. Yin explained, when your strength reaches the level of the Devouring Lord, and your connection with the Devouring Ancestral Talisman achieves perfect harmony, you will naturally be able to wield such power. However, this is an extremely rare occurrence. After all these millennia, the chances are so slim that even if one of his descendants were to inherit the devouring power, it would most likely be no more than a handful. Upon hearing this, Lin Dong let out a slight sigh of relief. So it's a very small chance after all. That's a relief. Otherwise, wouldn't everyone in the Kun clan be wielding the devouring ancestral talisman? Kid, do you think my earlier words were only because Linger is my descendant? The Devouring Lord's voice interrupted Lin Dong's thoughts as his gaze shifted toward them. Lin Dong cleared his throat awkwardly and forced a smile. Senior, I didn't mean it that way. How could I ever leave Miss Linger in such a dangerous place? Not necessarily. Kun Ling shot him a side glance. This guy had dared to strike down Jiu Feng earlier, so he was clearly not someone easy to deal with. Hey, I did help you earlier, so can you stop trying to take advantage of me now? Lin Dong shot a glare at Kun Ling. Seeing Lin Dong's expression, Kun Ling subconsciously took a small step back, then quickly realized her mistake. She stomped her foot in frustration. Damn this devouring power. Why does it make me lose my composure every time I see him? Cough, Lin Dong. Don't bully Linger. Though my descendants can gain some devouring power because of me, it also means that they will face suppression in front of the devouring ancestral talisman's master. The Devouring Lord coughed lightly. Lin Dong was taken aback, then looked toward Kun Ling, who seemed a little flustered and annoyed. He now understood. No wonder this usually cold beauty had been so subdued in his presence. It seems that having the devouring power was neither entirely good nor bad for them after all. However, Linger is my descendant, but that's only half the reason. The Devouring Lord continued with a faint smile. The legacy I left behind is mostly about my insights into reincarnation. With your strength, if you were to face it alone, you would likely get trapped in that cycle. Therefore, you'll need someone to protect you during the inheritance. Protect? Lin Dong was confused and looked at Kun Ling. Linger is my descendant with my bloodline, so she can remain clear-headed in that inheritance, the Devouring Lord said with a teasing smile. And if you want to obtain the legacy, Linger's protection will be crucial. Now do you understand? Lin Dong chuckled awkwardly, then turned his gaze toward Kun Ling. However, she immediately shot him a fierce eye roll, which made him feel a little bitter. Could she really be willing to protect him after being so annoyed? Well, I think I can handle it, Lin Dong said, forcing a smile and speaking with a slightly stiff tone. I know better than you whether you can handle it or not, the Devouring Lord replied with a faint smile. If there's less than a 50% chance of success, I wouldn't want anyone to easily break my inheritance. Someone's protecting me, and still only a 50% chance? Lin Dong's forehead broke out in cold sweat. Was the success rate really that low? Do you really think the Devouring Lord's inheritance is something ordinary? The Devouring Lord raised an eyebrow, and a domineering aura surged around him. Even in ancient times, he was only second to the Ancestral Talisman Master and the Ice Lord. The number of alien demon kings who died at his hands was countless, and that domineering presence was unparalleled. Lin Dong forced a bitter smile and fell silent. Although he was eager to obtain the inheritance, asking Kun Ling for help was a difficult matter. He felt like he had already done enough for her, and if she was unwilling, he wouldn't beg her. Seeing him fall silent, Kun Ling's gaze lingered on his slightly determined profile. It reminded her of the warm hand he had extended to her in the darkness earlier, and the body she had landed on after the violent fall. She unconsciously bit her lip, and the irritation in her eyes gradually faded. Then, with a slight movement of her red lips, she murmured, "Ancestor, I am willing to protect him, just this once." "Oh, you're willing?" The Devouring Lord looked at Kun Ling with interest, a smile playing on his lips. Though this guy is a little annoying, Linger has always been clear about her debts. He helped me earlier, so this time, I'll return the favor, Kun Ling said, her cheeks slightly flushed. She nodded. Lin Dong was a little surprised. He looked up at Kun Ling and clasped his hands in gratitude. "Miss Linger, your kindness won't be forgotten. If there's ever a need in the future, I'll do my best to assist you. As long as you don't use the devouring ancestral talisman to bully me, I'll be satisfied," Kun Ling said, turning her head away. Lin Dong nodded seriously. "Rest assured, Miss Linger." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Dong suddenly saw Kun Ling turning her head with a raised brow, followed by her slender hand tightening into a fist as she shot him a fierce glare. The slight anger in her eyes made Lin Dong feel somewhat bewildered. The Devouring Lord smiled as he looked at the two, saying nothing further, but waving his hand. Since that's the case, then the inheritance will be entrusted to you two. Thank you, Senior. Lin Dong said with a smile, cupping his fists. The Devouring Lord shook his head slightly, his tone calm. However, when I pass the inheritance to you, I might need to temporarily borrow your body. Borrow my body? Lin Dong was taken aback, not fully understanding the Devouring Lord's words. Some troublesome things have intruded into this space, and I need to clean them up. But I'll need your body to unleash my power, the Devouring Lord explained. Troublesome things? Lin Dong's gaze flashed and he exclaimed, Are they alien demons? Heh, for alien demon kings, plus one former subordinate of mine. The Devouring Lord replied with a casual laugh, as if discussing a few insignificant ants. 4 alien demon kings? Lin Dong's expression instantly changed. The alien demon kings were comparable to the peak power of the reincarnation stage. To send out 4 at once was a terrifying lineup. He recalled that in the Flame God Palace, they had only faced a single alien demon king. Wasn't it said that no reincarnation-level experts could enter this shattered space? Kun Ling asked from the side. Generally speaking, that's true, but everything has flaws. If the 9 peaks can suppress their power to enter, then what about the even more bizarre methods of the alien demons? The Devouring Lord responded. This is bad. Little Mink and the others are still outside. Lin Dong suddenly exclaimed, realizing that if the alien demons had indeed infiltrated this space, then Little Mink and the others were in danger. Don't worry, they won't dare to be reckless here, even if I have fallen, the Devouring Lord said indifferently, his voice carrying the pride and dominance of a former top-tier powerhouse of the world. Then please, Senior, take action, Lin Dong said in a deep voice. The Devouring Lord nodded lightly. In the next moment, his body turned into a streak of black light, shooting directly into Lin Dong's chest. Lin Dong's body immediately stiffened, and an indescribable, overwhelming aura slowly awakened within him, as though the former ruler of the heavens was stirring inside. The air seemed to tremble as the Devouring Lord's deep voice echoed from within Lin Dong's body. Lin Dong, next, I will show you the true power of the devouring ancestral talisman. Watch carefully. Thick, dark clouds of demonic energy covered the sky, occupying the entire heavens. In the midst of this sea of demonic mist, there stood a solitary peak, untouched by the dark clouds within a 1,000-meter radius. At this moment, Elder Zhu, Lu Qing, Little Mink, and the other strong figures were retreating steadily, their faces grim as they looked at the scene before them. Under the pressure of the 4 terrifying auras from above, the flow of their primordial energy slowed down significantly. 4 alien demon kings. This lineup was far beyond their capabilities. Eliminate them, then destroy the devouring deity temple. In the center of the demonic clouds, a dark figure sat upon a throne made of black mist. He looked down upon the many strong figures below with cold indifference. With a wave of his hand, his voice, as detached as ever, carried through the air. The 4 alien demon kings nodded and, without a word, snapped their fingers. 4 beams of demonic light shot out from their fingertips. Whoosh! The demonic light howled, piercing the void in an instant. Dozens of strong figures had no time to dodge, their bodies bursting into a mist of blood with a loud explosion. Even their demon spirits were unable to escape, completely obliterated. Trash! Seeing this, Elder Zhu and the others clenched their fists. The 4 alien demon kings' eyes flashed with savage light. With a sinister laugh, they waved their sleeves, and 4 more beams of demonic light shot out. Lu Qing, Kuren Yuan, Mu Di, let's take action. Elder Zhu gritted his teeth and shouted. At this moment, only the 4 of them had any hope of holding back the 4 alien demon kings. The others had almost no chance of survival. Lu Qing and Kuren Yuan nodded without hesitation, but Mu Di hesitated slightly. In the end, he gritted his teeth, realizing that if they didn't act now, there would be no chance left. The four of them leaped into action almost simultaneously. Primordial energy surged around them, with the distinct scent of reincarnation emanating from their power. Clearly, they had pushed their strength to its limit. Demonic light tore through the sky and exploded in front of the four, sending terrifying waves of demonic energy crashing toward them. Zhu Li and the other three forced themselves to stabilize their bodies, and a muffled groan echoed from their throats. Blood and qi surged within them, and their faces turned bitter. Was this the gap between them and true experts in the reincarnation stage? Haha, you've only just scratched the surface of the reincarnation path and you dare challenge us? Truly seeking death. The four alien demon kings laughed loudly, their voices filled with disdain. In the next moment, a fierce gleam flashed in their eyes. The vast magic clouds above them instantly transformed into four enormous demonic claws, each over 1,000 feet long, raining down to suppress the solitary peak. The four demonic claws occupied every inch of the sky. As the crowd looked up, their pupils reflected the terrifying claws. The overwhelming force made them feel utterly powerless, not a shred of resistance stirring within them. Everyone, strike together. Although Zhu Li and the other three elders' faces were pale, they were no ordinary individuals. With a loud roar, they unleashed all their primordial energy, forming a radiant barrier above the mountain. Whoosh, whoosh. The other powerful experts, shaken from their despair, suddenly found a surge of fierce determination rising within them. They roared in unison, and over 1,000 bursts of powerful primordial energy shot into the sky, merging with the radiant barrier. Buzz, buzz. As the immense primordial energy poured into the shield, it gradually became more substantial, its surface shimmering with a dazzling array of colors, breathtakingly beautiful. Boom. The demonic claws swiftly descended, slamming into the shield with immense force. The clash caused a burst of brilliant light, like multiple suns rising simultaneously. A series of terrifying energy waves exploded outward, yet despite the shield's apparent fragility, it had been forged with the combined power of over 1,000 experts. Even the four alien demon kings' attacks couldn't break through it. Humph! From the magic cloud thrown in the sky, the shadow seated there snorted coldly, and the four alien demon kings' expressions darkened. To fail against a group of ants, truly disappointing. The shadow spoke in a chilling tone, then rose to his feet. With a single stomp, the magic clouds surrounding him rapidly condensed. Within moments, they transformed into a black magic orb, barely the size of a palm. Go! The shadow sneered, flicking his finger. The black orb tore through the void and struck the radiant barrier. Boom! Upon impact, the barrier that had gathered the energy of over 1,000 experts instantly exploded, sending countless individuals spitting out blood below. Is this how we're all going to die here today? Zhu Li and the other elders stared at the shattered shield. The black orb continued its relentless approach, exuding an almost annihilating force. Even they felt their spirits tremble in the face of such power. That force was so overwhelming it made them shiver with dread. Sigh. A light, hopeless sigh echoed in their hearts. Just as they were about to close their eyes and await death, a sudden black light shot out from the devouring deity temple, like a streak of black lightning. As the black light shot forth, a clear, cheerful laugh rang out across the heavens and earth. Heh, causing havoc in front of my devouring deity temple?